So we're doing the fundamental theorem of algebra today. Like I said, this homework is optional. The real homework is the review for the test, which I'll give you at the end of class. All right. So we're gonna find zeros, just like we were doing yesterday, and then we're also going to, when given the zeros, find the equation. All right. So here is the fundamental theorem of algebra. If f of x is a polynomial of degree n, then the equation has at least one root in the set of complex numbers. So what that means is you're going to have some sort of square root if you have a complex number, okay? So if you had the square root of -1, right, you're going to have, it's always going to be plus or minus, essentially is what that's saying. So if you take the square root of something, you have to have plus or minus. If you have an I as a 0, you also have to have a negative I. If you have a 2i, you have to have a negative 2i. Okay, and the other important thing is that the degree of the polynomial tells you how many zeros it has. So if it's to the 4th degree, you have 4 zeros. If it's to the 3rd degree, you have 3 zeros, and so on and so forth. So, really all I need you to take from this is we're raising it to the 3rd power, right? So how many zeros are there going to be? 3. So if it's to the 3rd power, you have to find 3 zeros. All right? So you could factor this, but just to do another quick review of what we did yesterday, I'll do the what am I saying? Well, I'll do the finding all possible rational zeros. So what's my constant term here? 0. So I have plus or minus 0 over plus or minus 1, right? So what's my only thing I can plug in? 0. So let's see what happens. 0. I have 1, -1, -2, and 0. Okay? So I'll go through the process. 1 times 0 is 0. -1, 0. -2, 0, 0. So is 0 a 0? Yes. So then the next step, remember, we would say x minus 0. And then this, I go down 1 degree from here. So x squared minus 2x minus x minus 2. And then I can factor that, and I'd get x minus 0, x minus 1, x plus 1, x minus 2. And then you'd get you just set this all equal to 0. And you'd get x equals 0, -1, and 2. And so we see we had a degree of 3, and we got 3 zeros. Okay. Why don't you guys do this one real quick? All right? How many zeros should you have? 4. Good. So you plug in -2 and it works. So now remember you have to change the sign. So you get x plus 2. Go down 1 degree from 4 would be 3. So x cubed minus 3x squared plus x minus 3. And then once you're here, you can factor by grouping, right? So you'd get x plus 2. Take out an x squared, x minus 3. Take out a 1, x minus 3. So you're left with x plus 2, x squared plus 1, and x minus 3. So you set all 3 of these equal to 0, and you get x equals -2, 3, and then when you do this, watch carefully, you get x squared plus 1 equals 0, x squared equals -1, so square root. So x equals square root of -1 is what? I. Anytime you take a square root, it's plus or minus. That's how you get your 4 solutions. All right. So now what we're going to do is go backwards. Okay? So given your zeros, put this in standard form. Remember, standard form is like ax to the 4th plus bx cubed plus cx squared, and so on and so forth. So you're told it has a polynomial of degree 3. How many zeros does it have? 3. And it tells us the leading coefficient of 1, and it gives us 3 zeros. So to write it in standard form, all we have to do is first write out what these would be in factored form. So that would be x minus 3, x minus 1, and x minus 4. All right? And then you would just FOIL it. Yeah, this is just going backwards. So first, just do one at a time. So first, we'll just look at these two. So you'd get y equals x squared minus 4x plus 3 times x minus 4. Okay? And now remember, when you multiply a trinomial by a binomial, we have to make sure that we multiply everything by x and then everything by 4. Okay? So you'd get y equals x cubed minus 4x squared plus 3x minus 4x squared plus 16x minus 12. Alright, so then here you would just have to combine like terms. So you get x cubed minus 8x squared plus 19x minus 12. And that would be your answer. That's it. That's all we're doing. Alright, so now they tell us it's degree 3 with a leading coefficient of 2 and has zeros 4, negative 3i, and 3i. Notice if there's a negative 3i, there has to be a positive 3i. If there's a positive 3i, there has to be a negative 3i. So the only thing that's new here is the leading coefficient of 2. What do you think we're going to do with that? How are we going to account for that in our equation? Right, we just put the 2 out front. That's it. So then we'd have x minus 4, x plus 3i, x minus 3i. So what do you notice about this part here? What is that? Right? Difference of squares. That's a difference of squares. So now all I have to do is simplify, just like we did before. So I have 2 times x minus 4. This is going to end up being x squared minus 9i squared, because it's a difference of squares. If you wanted to, you could FOIL that and you'd get the same answer. But what does I squared equal? Negative 1. So I squared equals negative 1. So negative 9 times negative 1 is 9, right? So we'd get y equals 2, x minus 4, x squared plus 9. And remember, we're trying to get it in standard form, because I squared equals negative 1. So negative 1 times negative 9 is positive 9. So now you would just FOIL these. So you get y equals 2, x cubed minus 4x squared plus 9x minus 36. Sorry, I blanked out for a second there. And then you would just distribute by the 2. I'm sorry, factor out the 2. So 2x cubed minus 8x squared plus 18x minus 72. And that would be your answer. Alright? So it's really not all that difficult. You're just taking the zeros, putting it in factored form, and then multiplying out and getting it in standard form. The big thing to remember is if it tells you it's to the degree of 4, you have to have 4 zeros, and if they only give you 3, chances are they didn't give you the negative or the positive of your imaginary number. Okay? Alright, so this is the last one we have to look at. Read the directions and tell me what you see that's wrong and also something that's different. So they only give you 3 zeros, but they tell you the degree is 4. What would the other 0 be? Not negative 2 plus I, you're very close. 2 minus I. Because this is a complex number, and so it's coming from essentially the quadratic formula. So it would be 2 plus or minus I. Remember seeing that with our our complex numbers? 2 plus I. The directions of this are also different. They say to write the equation in intercept form. Okay? Not standard form. Intercept form is just with the zeros. That's it. Yeah, that's it. So my zeros are 5, 3, 2 plus I, 2 minus I. So here's how you would write this in intercept form. X minus 5, right? Pretty straightforward. X minus 3. Oh yeah, sorry, thank you. Leading coefficient of 2. And then for this, you just keep that in parentheses, and you say x minus 2 plus I and x minus 2 minus I. And that's your answer.